Hi, I'm John Mancini, past president of AIIM, and I'd like to welcome you to this What Does It All Mean series that's focused on our new market research on content integration and migration. And before going any further, would like to thank our sponsors and underwriters, AvePoint and Helix, OpenText, and Systemware. Without their support, we wouldn't be able to deliver this information for free to end users, and so we really do appreciate their involvement and engagement. So this second module focuses on the solutions and how well understood the solutions are to content integration and content migration problems. And there are really two ways of looking at the issue of modernizing your information toolkit. One is to try to migrate your content into more modern infrastructures. The second is to put a layer of content integration on top of that so that you try to leave information in place. And each has their relative merits and disadvantages, but I'd like to spend a little bit of time talking about what the community thinks about each of those approaches. So the first question we tried to get a handle on is, from where are people trying to migrate content? And so, as you can see from the research, four things really hop to the fore as people, think about where they're trying to migrate from. The first is organizational shared drives. Obviously, that's a problem in many organizations. Departmental drives, hard drives on individual computers, all of the information chaos that tends to surround most organizations. The on-prem SharePoint repositories is also rated fairly highly. But that'll make sense a little bit when I talk a little bit in a second about where they're trying to go to. So let me switch to that. And so where they're trying to go to, and this is where that point about SharePoint makes sense, is there's a migration going on between online SharePoint and cloud-based SharePoint and Office 365 repositories, and that's what that migration is all about. And in general, people are trying to get their information into more organized platforms, whether that's either in the cloud or whether that's in an on-prem ECM platform. They're trying to go from the unmanaged, that has been chaos in the past, to something that has a bit more structure associated with it. This question of content integration is an interesting one because a lot of the vendors have started to use this term pretty aggressively. But like a lot of terms that are in the early stages of evolution, there's not a lot of, the understanding isn't as widespread as it might be at this point. It's still evolving. And so one of the things that we did in this research that I think was kind of interesting is that I asked people to self-assess their organizational performance. And so that put all the people that participated in the survey into categories of either laggards, average, or leaders. And what you can see here in terms of the primary difference between them is that the more effective an organization is in its overall performance, the better understanding it tends to have of the term content integration. The most important reason, this part I thought was a really interesting data point because what you would normally find, and what I kind of thought before we did this, is that the primary reason would be hard cost savings. Retire past systems, get rid of some legacy systems, get rid of all the service and maintenance associated with those systems. But the most important reason that was cited by folks were these two in orange here, which are basically very high order kinds of value propositions, focused around knowledge worker productivity, focused around business agility. And so I think that says, as we talk about these solutions in our organizations, as we try to position them for adoption in our organizations, we have to be careful that we don't sell this stuff too low, that we elevate the value proposition to something that C-level people would care about. When you think about this in the context, again, of those leading and lagging organizations, what you can see here is that leading organizations are really focused on this question of business agility. And that really is where the money is to be made in terms of trying to figure out how you get ROI out of these solutions. More lagging organizations are still trying to deal with some of the basics. But leading organizations have a real keen sense of this business agility and knowledge worker productivity question. The question about, I think one of the things that we have to keep in mind as we think about these issues moving forward is that the solutions have changed a lot in the last couple of years. They're much more flexible, they're much more content services oriented, but there is a kind of a mindset that exists out here that these are not terribly pleasant projects to undertake, that content migration and integration is something difficult. And so I think that is something that we have to keep in mind as we talk about these solutions in our organizations, that there may be people with long institutional memories that aren't quite aware of how different the solutions are now from what they once were.